I saved my best friend from getting fired but didn't tell her the truth. Now she got super fired and blames me. The betrayal that destroyed our friendship. Jeremy, you've got to talk to her, I pleaded over the phone, my voice tight with tension. I don't know what else to do. She's going to get fired, and it's not going to be pretty. Who? What's going on? He replied, his confusion palpable through the line. Her, I said, my tone dropping to a whisper. Your girlfriend, Rachel. Silence stretched out between us like a tightrope. What do you mean, going to get fired? He finally asked, his voice laced with alarm. I took a deep breath, preparing to break the news as gently as possible. Look, she's just not fitting in at work. I tried to help, I really did. I got her the job, put in a good word, but she's got this attitude problem. She's always clashing with her supervisor, and today was the last straw. They're letting her go at the end of the week. In the background, I heard Rachel's laughter, blissfully unaware of the storm cloud hovering over her job. But why didn't you tell me? Jeremy's voice grew louder. I could have done something. I didn't want to stress her out. I thought it would get better, I said, wincing at the memory of her supervisor's frustrated glares. I even talked to my boss about transferring her to my team. And? It's done. She starts with me on Monday. But you need to sit her down and talk to her. She can't keep going like this. Jeremy sighed heavily. Okay, I'll handle it. Thanks for looking out for her. Summary to the power of 1: The protagonist, who works with Rachel, Jeremy's girlfriend, calls Jeremy in a tense conversation. Rachel has an attitude problem at work and is about to be fired due to constant clashes with her supervisor. Despite being warned, Rachel is unaware of her impending termination. The protagonist has secured a transfer for Rachel to their own team, hoping it will be a better fit, but emphasizes the need for Jeremy to discuss Rachel's work behavior with her to prevent future issues. I hung up feeling a mix of relief and dread. Rachel was safe, for now, but I knew the real challenge was just beginning. I had no idea how to manage someone who brought so much tension to the workplace, let alone someone I was only friendly with out of loyalty to Jeremy. Plus, the move was going to stir the pot at work. My supervisor had raised an eyebrow when I brought it up, and I could already hear the whispers of favoritism from my team. As the weekend approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was stepping into a minefield. Rachel had no idea she'd been on the brink of unemployment, and when she found out, it was going to blow up in my face. But what choice did I have? If I'd let her go, she would have had no job and no way to support herself. And if she didn't change her ways, she'd be out again, with no chance of coming back. Monday dawned, and Rachel strutted into the office with the confidence of a woman who had no clue she'd been on the chopping block days earlier. She tossed her hair and flashed a dazzling smile, completely oblivious to the cloud of hostility she left in her wake. Welcome to the team, Rachel, I called out, trying to sound cheerful. Her smile faltered a bit when she saw the look on my face, but she recovered quickly. Thanks, Dave, she said, taking a seat at the desk I'd set up for her. I'm really excited to be here. I hoped she meant it, because if she didn't start making some serious changes, she wouldn't be here for long. The first few days were tense. Rachel had a knack for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and her sharp tongue didn't help. My team members looked at me with a mix of suspicion and pity. Why did I bring her here? They had to be wondering. I had to admit, I was starting to wonder the same thing. But Rachel was a quick learner. She noticed the coolness and took it to heart. She started to listen more and talk less, to ask questions instead of making assumptions, and to offer help instead of criticism. Slowly, she began to win them over. They saw her dedication, her willingness to stay late and her ability to tackle tough problems. One evening, after a particularly hectic day, Rachel stayed behind to help me catch up on some paperwork. Dave, she said, her voice low, I know you didn't have to do this for me. What do you mean? I replied, not looking up from my computer. Transferring me. You didn't have to save me like that. I paused, finally meeting her gaze. You're a good worker, Rachel. You just need to find the right environment. But I've been a bitch to everyone, she admitted, her eyes welling up. I didn't realize it was that bad. It's okay, I said, giving her a reassuring smile. We all have our moments. Just keep it up, and we'll be fine. From that day on, Rachel made a conscious effort to improve. She started bringing in cookies for the team, took on extra tasks, and even managed to charm my grumpiest colleague with her disarming honesty. The atmosphere in the office lightened, and she began to truly integrate into the team. But the real test came when Rachel's old supervisor, Mr. Thompson, stopped by for a meeting. He took one look at Rachel, thriving in her new role, and couldn't help but comment. Looks like you've found your niche here, he said, a hint of begrudging respect in his voice. Rachel nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. Thanks to Dave, she said, her voice sincere. He saw something in me that I didn't even know was there. Mr. Thompson just grunted and continued with the meeting, but I knew that Rachel had scored a point. She was learning, growing, and hopefully, she'd keep it up. And maybe, just maybe, she'd start to understand that success wasn't just about being good at your job, it was about being good to the people around you too. As the weeks turned into months, Rachel became an invaluable part of my team. She was sharp, efficient, and had a surprising knack for boosting morale. She'd come in early to make coffee, stay late to cover for someone who had a family emergency, and always had a kind word for the interns. Slowly, the tension that had been so thick it could be sliced with a knife began to dissipate. But the real test came when we had to work on a high-pressure project with a tight deadline. Rachel was assigned to work closely with a new hire, Tim, who had a reputation for being a bit of a loner. The first few days were rocky, with Rachel's outgoing nature clashing with Tim's more introverted tendencies. But Rachel didn't give up. She approached him with patience and respect, asking for his input and giving him the space he needed. And then, the breakthrough. Tim started opening up, sharing his ideas, and contributing to the team in ways we'd never seen before. Rachel had done it again. She'd turned a potential conflict into a collaboration. And when the project was a success, it was clear that Rachel's influence had been the key. My supervisor called us into his office for a meeting. He had a stern look on his face that made my heart sink. Was this it? Had Rachel done something to mess up the good thing we had going? But then he broke into a smile and said, "I just wanted to tell you both that you're doing a great job. Rachel, we're taking you off the nerf list. You're a permanent member of this team. And Dave, I'm impressed with how you've handled this situation. You've got a knack for leadership." Rachel's eyes shone with gratitude as she turned to me. "Thank you," she whispered. I nodded. "You earned it." As we left the office, Rachel's hand brushed against mine. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a peace offering. We weren't friends, not yet, but we were colleagues, and we had each other's backs. And maybe, just maybe, that was the foundation of something more. The story of Rachel's redemption at work had become the office's favorite topic of conversation. Her transformation was a testament to the power of second chances and the willingness to change. Now, Rachel's success was on display for everyone to see, including Jeremy. He watched the video with a proud smile, but I couldn't help but wonder if he felt a twinge of jealousy. After all, it was me who had given Rachel the chance she needed, not him. And as Rachel and I grew closer, working side by side, I couldn't shake the feeling that our friendship was about to be put to the ultimate test. One fateful day, Mr. Thompson, Rachel's former supervisor, was called into a closed-door meeting with HR. His face was flushed, and he slammed the door behind him. The whispers grew louder as the minutes ticked by. Finally, the HR director emerged with a grim expression. "Mr. Thompson is no longer with the company," she announced. The office was abuzz with the news. It seemed his management style had finally caught up with him. The rumors of favoritism and his inability to handle conflict had spread like wildfire, and the company had decided to cut its losses. Rachel looked shocked but determined as she approached my desk. "They want me to take over his position," she said, her voice trembling. My heart skipped a beat. Rachel, in charge? It was a bold move, especially considering her past. But she had proven herself over the past few months. "You can do it," I told her, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. "You're more than capable." The shift in dynamics was immediate. Rachel's former colleagues now had to report to her. Some were thrilled at the change, while others were skeptical. But Rachel faced the challenge head-on. She knew she had to earn their respect, and she was ready to do whatever it took. She called a team meeting, laying out her vision for the department's future. As Rachel began to lead the team, I couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and anxiety. Would she be able to handle the pressure? Would she revert to her old ways now that she had power? I watched her closely, ready to step in if necessary. But Rachel surprised us all. She was firm but fair, and she had a knack for bringing out the best in people. Her first major decision was to give Tim, the intern she'd once clashed with, a promotion. He'd proven himself time and again, and Rachel knew it was time to reward his hard work. The team was shocked but ultimately supportive. Rachel's confidence grew with each passing day, and so did the respect she commanded. The tension between Rachel and I grew thinner as we worked together. We'd found a new rhythm, a balance of friendship and professionalism that had been missing before. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew quieter, sure, but they were there, lurking in the shadows of the office. How did she get the promotion? Is it because of Dave? It's not fair. But Rachel was undeterred. She threw herself into the new role with a fervor that was both inspiring and slightly alarming. She was up before the sun, at her desk before anyone else, and often the last to leave. She studied Mr. Thompson's old files, looking for patterns of poor management, and she worked tirelessly to correct them. She implemented new strategies to boost team morale and productivity, and she held weekly meetings where everyone had a chance to speak openly and honestly. One by one, Rachel faced her critics. She didn't avoid them. She sought them out. She'd sit down with each team member, listen to their concerns, and address them with empathy and understanding. It was clear she'd learned from her past mistakes and was determined not to repeat them. And as the months passed, the whispers turned into murmurs of admiration. Rachel had not only survived the transition but had thrived in a way none of us could have predicted. But the real test came when Jeremy approached me, his eyes stormy. "What's going on with Rachel and you?" he demanded. "It seems like she's spending more time with you than with me." I sighed, rubbing my forehead. "It's just work, man. She's doing great, and we're supporting each other." "Yeah, sure," he said, his tone laced with skepticism. "But I've noticed the way she looks at you." "Look, Jeremy," I began, trying to keep my voice level. "We're just friends." He glared at me. "You're more than just friends. You saved her job. You made her into this office superhero. I can't compete with that." "Jeremy," I said firmly, "it's not a competition. Rachel's doing well because she's working hard. That's it." "I don't like it," he said, crossing his arms. "It feels like she's slipping away from me." I didn't know what to say to that. The truth was, Rachel had changed, and it was because of the work environment we'd created together. But I couldn't let it affect our friendship, or my friendship with Jeremy. "I'll talk to her," I promised. "But you need to trust her. She loves you." Jeremy nodded, his jaw clenched. "I do. I just don't know if I trust you." The words stung, but I knew he didn't mean them. Not really. We'd been friends for too long. But I also knew that Rachel's success had cast a shadow over our friendship. A shadow that would either strengthen our bond or break it apart. The next day, Rachel's office door was closed, a clear sign she was deep in thought. I knocked gently, and she called for me to come in. Her eyes were red, and there was a box of tissues on her desk. "Everything okay?" I asked, taking a seat. "No," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I think Jeremy's jealous." "Jealous?" "Of us," she clarified. "Of how much time we spend together, of how well we work together." "Oh," I said, feeling the weight of the situation settle on my shoulders. "I talked to him." "What did he say?" "He said he trusts you," I replied, "but he's worried about the change." Rachel took a deep breath. "I don't want to lose him, Dave. I really don't." "You won't," I assured her. "We'll figure this out." But even as I said the words, I knew that the path ahead was fraught with challenges. Rachel's success had brought us closer, but it had also driven a wedge between her and Jeremy. And as much as I wanted to help, I wasn't sure if I was the right person for the job. After all, I was the one who'd given her the opportunity to shine, and now she was outshining us all. Jeremy's accusations haunted me. Was there something more to our friendship than I'd realized? I knew I had to clear the air before things got out of hand. I scheduled a lunch with Rachel, choosing a quiet restaurant away from prying eyes. As we sat down, I took a deep breath and said, "Look, about Jeremy." Her eyes searched mine, and she nodded, understanding in her gaze. "I know," she said, her voice soft. "It's just, work is the only place where I feel like I'm actually good at something." "You're good at a lot of things," I assured her, reaching out to give her hand a comforting squeeze. "But I get it. The last thing we need is drama." Rachel nodded, looking down at her plate. "I don't want to come between you two." "You're not," I said firmly, "but we need to make sure Jeremy knows that." The conversation was tough, but necessary. We agreed to keep our work relationship strictly professional and to make an effort to include Jeremy in our successes. Rachel promised to be more transparent with him about her feelings, and I promised to support them both as best as I could. As the weeks went by, Rachel continued to excel in her new role. She implemented new policies that streamlined our work process and boosted team morale. Her dedication was infectious, and soon, even the most skeptical of her colleagues were singing her praises. The office was a different place, and it was all because of her. But the shadow of doubt remained between Rachel and Jeremy. I watched as they interacted, trying to gauge the tension. Sometimes it was palpable, a tightrope stretch taut between them. Other times, it was as if nothing had changed. They'd laugh and joke, and for a moment, I'd let myself believe that everything was okay. Then one evening, Rachel called me in a panic. "Dave, you need to come over," she said, her voice shaking. "It's Jeremy. He found out about the promotion and he's not taking it well." My heart sank as I drove to her apartment. This was it, the moment of truth. Would our friendship survive the test? Would Rachel's newfound success be the thing that ultimately tore us apart? When I arrived, Rachel was pacing the living room, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Jeremy sat on the couch, his arms crossed, looking at me with accusation in his eyes. "What have you been doing?" he spat. "Why is she getting all the breaks?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Jeremy, it's not about me, I began. Rachel earned this. Earned it? He scoffed. By being your office pet? That's enough, Rachel said, stepping in front of me. You don't get to talk to him like that. Or what? Jeremy challenged. You'll fire me too? The room went silent, and Rachel's face fell. Is that what you think of me? She whispered. No, Jeremy said, his voice softening. I don't know who you are anymore. We sat down, the three of us, and talked. We talked about fears and insecurities, about the pressures of work and the fragility of relationships. And as the night stretched on, it became clear that Rachel's promotion had brought to the surface issues that had been festering for a long time. In the end, it wasn't about Rachel's success or my friendship with her. It was about Jeremy's fear of losing her, of not being enough. And it was about Rachel's fear of losing control, of not being able to provide for herself if she lost her job again. We all made promises that night. Rachel promised to make more of an effort to include Jeremy in her work life and to communicate better. Jeremy promised to be more supportive and to trust Rachel. And I promised to be there for both of them, no matter what. But life had other plans. 2 weeks later, Rachel stumbled upon an email that sent a cold shiver down her spine. It was a thread between the HR director and several senior managers discussing her questionable performance and her unprofessional behavior. The words felt like a knife in the back, especially after the hard work she'd put in to turn things around. Her eyes scanning the screen, Rachel felt her heart racing. There was no doubt in her mind that this was a coordinated effort to push her out. But why? And who was behind it? With trembling hands, Rachel printed the email and brought it to me. Look at this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. They're trying to get rid of me. I read the email, my jaw clenching with anger. We'll figure this out, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But you can't confront them without proof. Together, we began to dig, unraveling a tangled web of deceit that went far beyond Rachel's department. It seemed that her promotion had ruffled more feathers than we'd realized. Old grudges, office politics, and a desire for power had all converged to form a dangerous alliance against her. We worked in secret, gathering evidence of the conspiracy. Rachel was a wreck, her confidence shaken to the core, but she was also determined. She wasn't going down without a fight. The day of the confrontation arrived, and Rachel marched into the HR director's office with the printed email in hand. What's the meaning of this? She demanded, slapping the paper down on the desk. The director's face paled, but she recovered quickly. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Rachel, she said coolly. But Rachel was ready. She pulled out more emails, each one more damning than the last. She laid them out, one by one, detailing the plot to undermine her and get her fired. The room was silent as the director sputtered and denied, but Rachel's evidence was undeniable. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and I could feel my heart hammering in my chest as I watched from the sidelines. Finally, Rachel slammed her hand on the desk. I want a meeting with the CEO, she said, her voice shaking but firm. Now. The director had no choice but to concede. Rachel had played her hand masterfully, and now it was time to see if our gamble would pay off. In the conference room, the CEO listened to Rachel's accusations with a frown. He was a fair man, known for his zero-tolerance policy for office politics. As Rachel laid out her case, the room grew tense. The future of her career, and potentially the integrity of the company, hung in the balance. When she was done, the CEO leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers, and said, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Rachel. I'll look into it immediately." The investigation was swift and thorough. Within a week, the conspirators were exposed and dealt with accordingly. Rachel's job was secure, and she had earned the respect of her colleagues and superiors. But the aftermath was messy. The office was divided into camps, and Rachel felt the weight of her victory heavily. She'd saved her job, but at what cost? Her relationship with Jeremy was strained, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd lost something precious in the process. As we left the office that night, Rachel turned to me. "What now?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "Now," I said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We rebuild. Because that's what we do in the corporate world. We face challenges, we fight battles, and we keep moving forward." And Rachel, she was a warrior in her own right. The whispers grew louder, the glances more pointed. Rachel could feel the eyes of her colleagues on her, the weight of their doubt and suspicion heavy on her shoulders. But she didn't flinch. She'd come too far to let them break her now. Instead, she channeled her anger into action, working tirelessly to gather evidence of the conspiracy. Every day, she uncovered more threads, each one leading to another player in this twisted game of office politics. And with each revelation, Rachel's resolve grew stronger. This wasn't just about her job anymore. It was about justice, about standing up to the bullies who thought they could push her around. But the toughest part was keeping it from Jeremy. He had enough on his plate, and Rachel didn't want to burden him with her troubles. Plus, she wasn't sure if he'd believe her. After all, she'd been the one to push him aside in the name of work. How could she expect him to stand by her now, when it looked like she was about to lose everything? The day of the confrontation was nerve-wracking. Rachel had arranged to meet with the CEO, armed with the emails and documents that would prove her innocence. But as she waited in the lobby, her heart pounded in her chest. What if she'd read the situation wrong? What if she was walking into a trap? When she was finally ushered into the CEO's office, Rachel took a deep breath and laid it all out. She didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat it. She told him everything she knew, and why she believed she was being targeted. The CEO listened, his expression unreadable. When she was finished, he nodded slowly. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Rachel," he said, his voice calm and measured. "I will look into it immediately." The next few days were a blur. Rachel waited, her nerves frayed, for the axe to fall. But it was the silence from Jeremy that was the hardest to bear. She knew she had to tell him the truth, but she didn't know how to start. Finally, she called him, her voice trembling. "Jeremy, we need to talk," she said. "There's something I need to tell you." He arrived at her office looking worried, his eyes searching hers for answers. Rachel took a deep breath and told him everything, laying her fears and her evidence out on the table. To her surprise, Jeremy didn't explode. He didn't accuse her of being paranoid or overreacting. Instead, he took her hand and said, "We'll get through this together." And in that moment, Rachel knew that no matter what happened next, she wasn't alone. She had her job, and she had Jeremy. And maybe, just maybe, she had a chance to expose the liars and cheats who had tried to bring her down. The investigation was swift and brutal. Rachel's accusers squirmed as the truth was brought to light, their lies unraveled before their eyes. And when the dust settled, Rachel was still standing. The CEO called her into his office once again. "Rachel," he said, "you have proven yourself to be an invaluable member of this team. Your bravery and integrity are an inspiration to us all." Her heart swelled with pride as he offered her a new role in the company, one with more responsibility and a bigger paycheck. But Rachel knew that the real victory was the faith that Jeremy had placed in her. As she walked back to her desk, she saw the looks of respect from her colleagues. They knew what she'd been through, and they knew she'd come out on top. And maybe, just maybe, they'd start to realize that she wasn't just the girlfriend of the guy who got her the job. She was Rachel, the woman who wouldn't be silenced by deceit. Jeremy was waiting for her outside her office, his face a mix of pride and concern. "You okay?" he asked, pulling her into a tight hug. Rachel nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm better than okay," she said. "I'm free." Their relationship had been tested, but it had also grown stronger.